Warning, this video contains spoilers for every Pokemon game on Switch. If you haven't played or finished Legends Arceus, BDSP, Sword and Shield, or Scarlet and Violet, then you might want to click off this video. Pokemon, a series near and dear to the hearts of many. When I was a kid, I grew up with the TV show, my dad got me Pokemon Stadium for his Nintendo 64, and I eventually found Pokemon Diamond just laying around somewhere. I talked a bit more about that in my last video if you want more details on that, but something I didn't mention in the last video was the other bits of Pokemon in my life. The hours I spent on Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the game I credit for me falling in love with Pokemon the creatures before Diamond made me fall in love with Pokemon the series. I also had Pokemon Rangers, Shadows of Almio, one of the first games I ever 100%ed until someone stole it from me at church. I was around 8 years old, some kid told me, "Hey, I'll help you put your games away," and then purposely swapped out the game for his Nintendogs. He purposely swapped out my 100% cartridge of Pokemon Rangers with Nintendogs.
Josh, you're a little shit. You took my game and swapped it with Nintendogs. And I know your name's Josh. That's what you set the name of the game to. That's also what you named your dogs, Josh and Josh Jr. But don't worry, I took care of them. And then I gave them away.
Anyways, after that I pretty much dropped Pokemon for about a decade. Sometimes I'd emulate the old games, but I dropped them pretty quickly as it's not as fun as playing it on the old consoles. That was until January 2022. I did a live stream to save up money for my little sister's birthday since I bought her a Switch. Then to my rescue came my friend Kat, who donated enough money for me to get 2 games my sister wanted, New Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Legends Arceus. She loved both of them and said I could take a turn whenever I wanted, so at night when everyone was asleep, I, for the first time, fell down the Pokemon rabbit hole. Jumping from the DS era to the Switch era was such a drastic change and a big refresher. A refresher for being my first Pokemon game in a long while, and a refresher for Pokemon as a whole. The game takes place in Old Sinnoh, aka the Hisui region. The game consists of open zone areas with Pokemon scattered everywhere, and you can catch Pokemon just by throwing balls at them, completely avoiding a battle. Going through the story lets you unlock other ways of traversal, each of them being one of the new Pokemon in the game. There's Weirdeer, the good land mount, Ursaluna, the bad land mount, Basculegion, the water mount, Sneasler, the climbing mount, and finally Braviary, the only mount you'll need alongside Sneasler because it makes the other 3 useless. This game was the first time I ever legitimately caught a shiny Pokemon in the game that wasn't Pokemon Go. And speaking of Pokemon Go, since this is my first Pokemon game on console, I can take advantage of Pokemon Home to transfer some of those Pokemon to here. Nice. So to talk about the story of this game, we have to go back to Generation 4. This game serves as both a prequel and a sequel. A prequel for taking place before the events of Generation 4, you even meet the ancestors of characters in the future, and even some from other regions. But it's a sequel for our protagonist. We play as the same protagonist from Generation 4, but a year older than they were when they started the journey. Arceus literally summoned them to the past while they were just chilling with their slippers and everything after becoming champion. And now we're in a newly established town. There's a bunch of Pokemon that start going on a rampage, and Pokemon from the future appearing, and everyone hates you for existing until you solve their problems.
Oh no, how am I ever going to cover my pickle jar? You already have lids on them. I know, I'm gonna get a Pokemon to cover it. What? This is kind of unrelated, but do you by chance have a Graveler?
It's kinda strange though, going through the story of the game, it feels more like a remake of Generation 4, but everything is really epic. Like, seeing this now is the same as seeing this as a kid, and it feels that way throughout the whole game. Every part of your adventure, the parts that get you excited, the parts that get you frustrated, collecting Pokemon like you're a hunter or a ninja, every encounter and battle feels like it's dialed up to 100. It just all comes full circle. The same awe you held as a child has ascended further through this game. I beat the game in less than a month, and I finished the post-game in the following month. My favorite part was that throughout this entire playthrough there were so many shiny Pokemon. They're a very rare version of a Pokemon that basically is just a recolored version of it. What makes them so rare and sought after is the fact that there's a 1 in 4,096 chance of getting it. The first one I ever caught was a golden Magikarp, and then it turned into a box filled with shinies because this game does a neat little thing with shiny Pokemon. Ever since the 5th generation of games, the shiny charm has been a reward for players who complete the Pokédex, and the charm boosts the odds. The boost varies from game to game, but in Pokemon Legends Arceus, the boost can increase even more by completing every challenge in every Pokemon. According to Cerebi, this will raise the odds from 1 in 4,096 to 1 in 585. But it gets even better. With the addition of massive mass outbreaks, it turns into a 1 in 216. Also, I just have to say, Blaine's and Shiny Catherine are the reasons I love getting shinies. Blaine's feeds my desire for shiny Pokemon through his giveaway, and it helped me complete the Pokedex at some point. Meanwhile, Shiny Catherine taught me how to properly hunt, as well as teaching me how fun and worth it shiny hunting can be. Okay, this is getting a little bit off track. The first part of the postgame consists of helping the merchant Volo in finding the rest of the Arceus plates. To do so, we'll have to get all the legendary Pokemon in the game, fight special alpha bosses, and now we have all the other plates. I mean, outside of like the level difficulty, these challenges weren't that hard. The only one in my opinion that was tricky to get was Manaphy, because you had to know this secret that you could only learn about if you played BDSP in order to obtain this Pokemon.
I think we're missing one. Oh. You mean this? That's not good.
This is honestly one of the most epic build-ups to a fight in all of Pokemon. You find out Volo caused all the chaos in Hisui because he wanted the attention of Arceus, so he found a way to anger the Pokemon of time and space, causing them to warp things where they shouldn't go, and bringing you here in the process alongside Ingo from Unova, out of all people. So we beat him. It should be over, right? Okay. That's it, right? That's it, right? Huh? For a game called Legends Arceus, I haven't really talked much about Arceus itself. This is the first time Arceus has ever been the center of a game. Its event was cut from Generation 4, and it's instead been distributed over the years through special real-world events. This is the first time it's ever been legitimately obtainable in a game, and to catch it, you have to catch every single Pokemon in the game. Old Mons, new Mons, Hisuian exclusive forms, and even the legendaries, which include a new member of the Forces of Nature. The only Pokemon you don't really need are Shaman and Darkrai. Sure, you can have them to complete your decks, but they're not necessary to the game because they're treated more like bonus content. And Arceus isn't an easy catch. You have to catch him like the other boss Pokemon in the game, throwing bombs and eventually battling him.
Hey, you look pretty angry.
Nah, bro, I'm chilling.
After defeating Arceus, you are presented with a piece of Arceus, and the game is actually over at this point. Arceus is pretty much the final reward for finishing the game.
But all that's left are some side quests, and that's pretty much it. I literally caught every single Pokemon, and now I have no idea what to do. So, what am I gonna do now? It's ransomware in disguise!
Pokemon Home. This game serves one purpose and one purpose only.
This is not a game or a home, this is hell. PC box hell, and that is hell spelled with a P. Pell. Pokemon Home support eventually came to Legends Arceus, giving everyone the ability to transfer their Pokemon from home to all the other games on Switch and back. It also allows one-way travel from the 3DS or Pokemon Go to the Switch. I've played Pokemon Go since release. This was really my only way of playing modern Pokemon through my decade-long gap. But I didn't have anywhere to put my shiny Ampharos or my shiny Furret. Or at least that was the case until the following summer my friend Caesar got me Shining Pearl. The bad one.
First things first, I already made an entire video about this game. It's my longest video by far in terms of both planning and length. So I would appreciate it if you took the time to watch it. It's more on the emotional and nostalgic side kind of review. So if you want to know my feelings more in depth, then go and watch it. But what I will say is this game is a perfect remake of Diamond and Pearl. Too perfect, in fact. Other Pokemon remakes change things up, adding new mechanics and story beats. Take, for example, the last Pokemon remake.
Nope, not that one, the other one. We don't talk about the first one.
But this one's around 85 to 90% of the same as its original counterpart. The 10 to 15% of new content includes the art style, changes to the Grand Underground, a very small handful of outfits, Pal Park being replaced with Romanus Park, the Giratina Shadow, and the other legendary bosses, and there is some bonus content, but it only applies if you own other games at that time. Before BDSP was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Pokemon Sword and Shield. For owning Let's Go, you get Mew. For owning Sword and Shield, you get Jirachi. And Legends Arceus came out a few months later. If you caught Arceus in that game, you can catch Arceus in BDSP, so for a 100% completion of Legends Arceus, you get a bit of post-game content for BDSP, which is pretty cool.
Can we literally talk about the fact that they brought back a cut event from the original game and made it official? And for some reason, it took them longer to make the cut event become official than it did for me to beat my first mainline Pokemon game. I don't know why that amuses me.
Honestly though, I recommend the remakes if you never got a chance to play the game in their original form. By the time you watch this video, you might still be able to play it in its original form, but you probably won't be able to transfer it up, as the 3DS eShop is going to be shutting down soon, and inevitably Pokemon Bank will shut down after if you never got a chance to download it. I guess you can call BDSP a backup plan to save Generation 4. But they did a terrible job because when the Switch closes down, you can't get the launch update. This game didn't launch with its planned soundtrack, instead it launched with a placeholder MIDI track. BDSP is already considered bad by most Pokemon fans, but if you're playing it at that point, you're pretty much screwed into playing it in its worst possible form. I miss the times when games were completed at launch, so we didn't have the need for post-launch updates to keep the games alive. No longer can we really learn to love and enjoy the games as they are presented to us at first. Now everything feels like it can never reach its maximum amount of enjoyment or perfection because we just expect updates at this point. But on the bright side, I beat my first ever mainline Pokemon game, and it was the first game I ever picked up in the series.
You've probably noticed by now that I've been going through all these games in a backwards order from when they came out, and the reason for that is because that's the order I've obtained them. I got this in February for my sister, I got this in summer from my friend Caesar, and in September, around the time I was finishing editing the last video, I got Pokemon Sword from my friend Caesar, hence the "oh no" at the end of the last video. At this point, I already knew I'd fall in love with the game. Every series I get into backwards or in the wrong order, I usually fall in love with.
The game takes place in the Galar region. Pokemon battles are a much bigger deal here than they were in the previous games. Instead of battling inside of interesting themed facilities, now you fight inside of enormous stadiums, with the gimmick of this game being Dynamaxing, which gives your Pokemon the ability to turn enormous for 3 turns, and some Pokemon even have the ability to Gigantamax, which is just Dynamaxing except the Pokemon looks different. Like Pikachu for instance, Gigantamaxing makes him resemble his original design when he used to be all small and chubby. And the reason Pokemon can turn this way is because of an event that happened a long time ago, before the foundation of Galar. Pokemon mysteriously turned big all around Galar 3,000 years ago in an event known as the Darkest Day. But don't worry, a dog with a sword and a dog with a shield face stopped it, and then 2 brothers took credit for it, and then the foundation of the Kingdom of Galar happened. Because that totally makes sense. I mean, it's a Pokemon game. It never makes sense. It's the same formula as the past games where you have to complete a gym, get a badge, except now you're being viewed by an enormous crowd of roaring fans. But before we can get the spotlight in the gyms, we have to choose our starter. One of the many criticisms of Sword and Shield are its starters. Before, we used to have starters based on different animals or mythological creatures. But in this game, we have a drum-playing monkey, a soccer rabbit, and James Bond's pet lizard. Why is it a lizard, you may ask? Because it's 007 and the Pokedex, and the region's based off the UK, and you know, James Bond was like inspired by Pokemon. The starters are gifted to you by Leon, the champion of the region, and our rival's older brother. Our rival in this game is Hop, and he wasn't too bad, and I was surprised. I went into this game with the belief that I was going to hate him. I haven't heard anything positive of modern Pokemon rivals, but to me, this game had 5 incredible ones. Hop is the nice rival, think in the sense of Barry or How, except he's driven by the desire to become champion to be more like his brother and make him proud. Marnie wants to become champion to help her hometown, Spikmuth, but I don't think becoming champion can fix this mess, honestly. There's Bede, who is literally just an ass. He's literally the embodiment of the asshole rival, and that's pretty much it. He was endorsed by the chairman of Galar's Pokemon League, but I think he was just used as a scapegoat. And finally, we have our rivals from the Isle of Armor DLC, Clara and Avery. Both are training to be gym leaders in their respective Pokemon team types. Clara will do anything in her power to get to the top, and at one point even covers the battlefield in toxic spikes, literally right before you battle her, and yet I still beat her. I don't know much about Avery's character, so I can't really say much about him, but I think the Shield players also had a tough time with him too. Anyways, you beat all the gyms, fight off Marnie's fans, make it to the championships, and then BAM! The Pokemon League chairman is actually evil. The plot of the game makes no sense. He wants to recreate the Darkest Day in order to give the people of Galar infinite energy. Prior to this point, there was never a mention of there being an energy crisis whatsoever in Galar. It was just thrown there last second.
So this is how we're going to solve the energy crisis. We're going to start another Darkest Day. There's going to be giant rampaging Pokemon everywhere, but it'll be alright. Because we'll have infinite energy. I mean, if we're struggling with energy, we can just use electric-type Pokemon in a way that doesn't harm them. Or, you know, we could use grass-type Pokemon and have them use Solar Beam on solar panels.
Anyways, the Darkest Day happens, then a Pokemon emerges, which, to nobody's surprise, is the third mandatory legendary in the game, and this Pokemon is the source of all Dynamaxing, Eternatus. We fight it with the help of the legendary dog duo who stopped the Darkest Day 3,000 years ago, catch it, and then fight Leon to become the champion, and that's pretty much it for the game's main story.
There is some bonus content that racks around 50 to 75% of the original game's runtime. There's a post-game where these two goons over here try to take your dog because they're the descendants of the original founders of Galar. The Galar region is based on England, so I just assume this is what British people look like. There's the Isle of Armor DLC, where you get to join a dojo and collect some Pokemon from the past games. There's also a new DLC exclusive Pokemon, Kurffy, which after bonding with, evolves into Urshifu. And because this is a dojo and based on martial arts, you can evolve Kurffy between two forms, two different fighting styles, which I think is a cool little touch. You can take the Dark Fighting Single Strike or the Water Fighting Rapid Strike. Either way, it's the same Pokemon, but one's stronger and the other one is faster. Fun fact, or not a fact, I don't think it's really confirmed, but the Rapid Strike and Single Strike are references to the two fighting styles that you can do in Legends Arceus, so it's a little teaser reference, Easter egg type thing if you catch that. The second DLC is the Crown Tundra, or as I like to call it, the Zoo. Really, your only objective here is to catch Pokemon. There's not really much of a story per se. It's more missions. Of course, there are returning Pokemon, but the main objective is to catch these specific legendary Pokemon. This one wasn't too bad. I spent the majority of my time catching returning Pokemon before going back and catching the new ones. They reintroduced roaming Pokemon, and they're not as annoying as they used to be. Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, all returning as roaming legendaries with new forms now that they're in the Galar region. According to the lore, apparently they come here during migration or something like that. I think the best part about them was just how fun it was to look for them. You don't just see them in the Crown Tundra, they run around the different parts of Galar. You find Articuno hovering around the Crown Tundra, you find Moltres flying around the Isle of Armor, and you find Zapdos running around the wild area. And you actually have to run and catch up to it. It felt like playing Pokepark Wii, if anyone played that. You had to do these mini games where you have to like chase a Pokemon in order to befriend it, and it was so annoying whenever you'd have to chase one that was much faster than you. It just triggered a memory. Zapdos was a pain, but he was fun and he was worth it. Also, I didn't really talk about the wild area. It's just this large area where Pokemon are out in the open, and that's pretty much it. And it's not like Legends Arceus or Scarlet and Violet, because in this game they're still their base colors. You can't really tell if they're shinies or anything like that, or you can't tell if they have a size difference either. To be fair, at that time it was new to the mainline series, so I can cut it some slack. This was the first time we had a big open area where Pokemon were out in the wild before you can catch them. In my opinion though, Legends Arceus did it the best, and Generation 9 ruined it. Anyways, moving forward, we also got new Regis.
Regirock, Regice, and Registeel represented the Stone Age, Ice Age, and Iron Age. This game introduces Regidraco and Regieleki, who represent the Middle Ages and the Modern Ages. Another set of returning legendaries are the Swords of Justice. You catch the 3 big ones, and then you can catch the 4th one as a bonus. And our final legendary is Calyrex, the king of Pokemon, who at one point ruled all Galar. It has a giant head that's supposed to resemble a crown, but to me it looks like a giant cabbage being held up by the tails growing out of his head. Technically, there's 2 other legendary Pokemon, but their only purpose is to be Calyrex's mount, and you spend a small portion of the Crown Tundra trying to find it. Apparently, it's his horse from a long time ago that he lost, but you can choose between getting the Ice Horse or the Ghost Horse. You might think, wow, options! But to me this just implies the horse froze up and died, only to come back as a ghost. So you have the choice of either getting a lifeless corpse, or an unresting soul. And that's it for main quests. Oh, but you're not finished there. The Crown Tundra gave us Dynamax Adventures. Basically, you rent out Pokemon to catch rarer Pokemon. These legendary Pokemon are optional, so they don't affect the Pokedex in any way. The bonus to this comes after you finish the DLC quests. You unlock bonus quests to catch all the Ultra Beasts. I don't know what you get as a reward after catching all these Pokemon, because I pretty much just stopped playing at that point to take a break. but I can say there are rewards for completing all 3 Pokedexes in-game. The main game gives you the Shiny Charm, the Hollow of Armor gives you a crown, and the Crown Tundra also gives you a crown, but it's a different look. You also get some stars on your trainer card to prove that you completed the game. Honestly, I was right when I got into the game. This game was the most enjoyable out of the 3. Tied to Arceus, of course, because both games felt really refreshing. I loved the overall charm the game had. This region really showed its inspirations to the real-world locations. I'm gonna try to pronounce these names as best I can. Postwick looks like Cotswold or Wales, Turfield looks like it's based off Avery, and the depiction of the Darkest Day is a reference to the Uffington White Horse. Sirchester is based off Sumrest, both locations have bathhouses. Hammerloke is based off York or Edinburgh, I don't know how to pronounce that one. And Woodham is based off London. Also, I want to point out that my girlfriend is telling me Spikemuth is pronounced Spickmuth. She's British, so she's certified in this department. She also helped me with the pronunciations of everything else.
And overall, if you want to have a good time, go ahead and pick up this game, but only if you want to have a good time. Don't get this game if you want to collect every single Pokemon. Excluding Scarlet and Violet, there are 905 Pokemon through generations 1 through 8. But back in 2019, when these games came out, Pokemon Company decided to make its worst decision ever and cut the national dex. Essentially, the whole internet rioted over the fact that this is the first ever home console release of a Pokemon mainline game, and there was a chance that your favorite Pokemon wasn't going to be in the game at all. They couldn't be caught, they couldn't be transferred, and they had to sit in PC box hell. If you have Ducklet, you've essentially doomed him. Ducklet's not even in Scarlet and Violet. You just left him longer in PC box hell. All the games did this. All the games after Sword and Shield did this. You can't get every single Pokemon in this one. You can't get any single Pokemon in this one. You can't get every single Pokemon in this one. You can't even get Sylveon!
How many Pokemon are still missing from the Switch games? A question many still need answered, now even more with the recent release of Generation 9, getting us past 1,000 Pokemon. In 2019, Pokemon released its first home console Pokemon game, which was also their first game without a national dex, and so did all the other games that followed. Well, thanks to BDSP, we have all generations 1 through 4 Pokemon, that's 493. Sword and Shield gave us 253 returning Pokemon, and 19 of those are new forms across generations 5 through 7, plus the Pokemon that are only obtainable by transferring from the 3DS or Pokemon Go, bringing it up to 746 Pokemon. Legends Arceus gave us 3+ Pokemon, 16 new forms, 749 Pokemon in total. And finally, Scarlet and Violet gave us a measly 23 Pokemon. This brings up the grand total to 772 Pokemon out of 809 pre-Switch era Pokemon. That is also including Meltan and Melmetal, because Kanto for the 5th time. Also, there's 11 Pokemon in the game's code that aren't available yet, but they are expected to arrive with Pokemon Home's update, so expect 783 in the coming months. But for now, it's 772. So these are all the Pokemon available on the Nintendo Switch, but that doesn't mean these Pokemon can be caught in these games. Some of them are still transfer only. And sadly, none of them are Furfrou. Please, can we just cleanse Pokemon Home? So now you know.
So this is the current state of Pokemon, and I'm sad to say that I walked into it this way. As a returning fan, it just feels more complicated than it needs to be.
Hello, I'm here for the sponsored segment of the video.
We don't have any sponsors.
What about Patreon?
We don't have enough patrons. I don't put enough stuff there to be worth $1.
But what about the merch store?
Only Bread and Crafty have really bought stuff from there.
Channel memberships?
Same as Patreon, but it's $3.
Throne gifts?
I mean, if anyone wants to buy me something, like, that's cool, but it's not like that's gonna happen.
So then what did you call me for?
You broke through my ceiling. Hey everyone, just wanted to give a quick thank you to everyone who's watched the video this far. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. For anyone who wants to support the channel, you can support with the links down below. For $3 a month, you can become a channel member, which includes benefits like getting video updates, getting to see videos early, as well as getting a shout out at the end of a video. You can buy me something on Throne Gifts as well. Upgrades for making videos, video games to review or play, props for my videos, amiibos, or even something for my little sister. Her birthday's coming up while I'm making this video, actually. I have a merch store with shirts and stickers and other little doodads. And finally, a Patreon, where for $1 a month you can get your name at the credits at the end of a video, early look at video thumbnails, and video updates.
Welp, I did my part. I guess I'm going back to my closet.
Wow, what a sellout. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, as a returning fan, it's kind of sad and complicated to transfer Pokemon over now or to collect them all. There's not really much to do with them. Like, give me something to do with them. Something like Stadium or Battle Revolution or Coliseum. You wanna know what they did?
They gave all your Pokemon a use. If I can't use Ducklet in any of these games, at least let me use it in a battle. I don't just want to resort to Pokemon Showdown the entire time. The current era of these games just fills me with a hunger for a real Pokemon game. Just a simple adventure in the same vein of BDSP, but a hybrid of both the modern and classic art styles and gameplay styles. It's gonna be too late to go back to this soon. The 3DS is the only way of playing every generation of Pokemon, and even if you get your hands on one, the system's gonna lose its eShop after March 27th of this year, and it's about a quarter away, less than a quarter away from now.
I've never owned a 3DS. At least not until a few weeks ago. A friend of mine, King Zapster, gifted me his old 3DS XL, and funny enough, it is a Year of Luigi 3DS XL. 10 years after the Year of Luigi. That's such a funny coincidence. And my goal after beating the newer Pokemon games is to beat them all. I want to go through all the old games and transfer over all my old Pokemon into the newer generations. Maybe I'm not able to play with them now, but maybe sometime in the future I'll be able to use them. I can bring them with me into the Switch era, and even beyond that.
I've never played Alola. I don't know jack about Kalos. I went through Unova, I never beat it, and I haven't even touched their sequels. I don't like Hoenn. I've never found it attractive even in the slightest bit, but I want to understand why people love it so much. Meanwhile, Johto is my beloved despite never beating it. And finally, Kanto, the first generation of Pokemon. I want to beat the game that started it all.
So then why don't you? You're still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. But what's stopping you from going back to Kanto right now?
The only way to beat it on 3DS is to transfer the Mons into Pokemon Bank, but the only way to do that is get a 3DS Pokemon game. I don't have that yet.
No, it's much simpler than that.
Wait, what? The sponsor segment is over. Are you trying to pull something?
No, I'm just here to remind you forgot one more Pokemon game for Switch.
Nope.
If you want to beat Kanto, this is really the best option for you.
I don't own it.
What?
I got Pokemon Yellow.
So you're telling me you made an entire video about Pokemon games on Switch, and you don't even own the first one that came out?
I mean, Pokemon Yellow was $10.
I don't want to talk about this one. I've only played the demo. I've seen some gameplay. My little sister wants Eevee for us to play together and beat her first game. I want the game from you and BDSP and getting Kanto Pokemon for BDSP and filling out the home Pokedex. It's literally just Kanto again. Sure, there's a few differences in the story and protagonist, but it's mostly the game with the same region we were introduced to in 1996 and revisited in 1999 and 2000 and 2004 and 2009. This is like the 6th time we've gone to Kanto, the only difference being the first time we went, it was an incredibly hard experience. Meanwhile, in modern times, it is a baby easy experience. Literally, the only possible way you couldn't beat this game is if you just got bored of it, because this is the easiest Pokemon game by far. But I'm not sure if I'll enjoy it until I try it, so for the time being, I'm just not gonna touch the game, unless someone wants to gift it for me. Personally, I don't see the value to it, other than adding it to my Pokemon collection, or eventually shiny hunting Gen 1 Mons. I would only personally get Eevee for my sister because she loves Eevee. So in short, very good game, meant for more casual players or Pokemon Go players, not really something serious veterans will enjoy unless they miss the good old days.
As much as I'd love to beat Kanto in this way, it's not in my budget.
Ha! Loser!
I originally planned this video on being a short where I talked about all the Pokemon still missing on the Switch, and it slowly evolved into me retelling my Pokemon story and how I got back into it in 2022. I was gonna stop at the pre-Scarlet and Violet era, but now that I started, I can't stop, bro.
Scarlet and Violet are the newly released Generation 9 of the mainline Pokemon games. It's the first non-linear Pokemon game, completely open world, except for the one area that everyone thinks is Kalos. There are Pokemon littered everywhere, new special kinds of raids. Pokemon can change their typing due to a new mechanic called terastallizing or terastallization. And my favorite part about the game is the multiplayer. I feel like it's a welcome addition. It doesn't really add much to the game, but it makes the world feel a little less lonely. My only gripe with the game, however, is the fact that there are no shiny sparkle sounds like in Legends Arceus, no icon for the shiny on the minimap, and the fact that the minimap is just confusing. The map will show you directly on top of a Pokemon, but when you change perspective, the map also changes the Pokemon's position, leaving you with no idea where the Pokemon is, and you don't even know where you are. The school section of the game was a little bit boring, but it actually gave you valuable information. Just like real life, I'm bad at math class as well, so I just Googled the answers for that one. It's just like school all over again. I wonder if the Pokemon universe has like its own version of Quizlet. I know this isn't in the script, but I mean like this just got me thinking a little bit. There's also a new mechanic in the form of picnicking, which allows you to get boosts for certain things. It can be certain boosts like encountering a certain type of Pokemon, catching certain types of Pokemon, higher egg chances, and the one I'm having the most trouble with right now is Sparkling Power, which I believe I need to get these rare herbs for, but the means of getting them isn't exactly the easiest, at least for my team. Overall, I'm surprised how much I ended up liking the gameplay, considering I like games that are more story-focused rather than gameplay-focused. But despite how much of a mess this game was, I had a fun time, and I got the entire Pokédex completed in about 2 to 3 weeks after the game launched. I won't get too deep into the story since the game is a month old, or at least when I was writing this script the game was about a month old. But really, it's the same Pokemon formula of catching Pokemon, battling gyms, and then defeating the quote-unquote evil team. But instead of being intertwined with one story, you're now given the option as to which story you want to take on first, and when you want to take them on. And the 3 routes all intertwine at the end to reach the game's true ending. As for the post-game, however... Wow. There's a really big wall here. So this is the end of my current Pokemon journey, which brings us to today. 100%ing Legends Arceus, beating my first ever Pokemon game, beating my first ever modern Pokemon game, and now beating every single Pokedex in all the games right before Scarlet and Violet came out, and then beating the Scarlet and Violet Pokedex 2 weeks after the game came out. I am holding the game upside down. Anyways, my current goal for the channel is to surpass 3,000 subscribers. My current gaming goal is finishing the National Dex on Pokemon Home. I also want to play all the old games because my only one problem across all 4 games was just how underwhelming all the champions were. They were so overhyped, and I beat them all in, I don't know, I beat them all quicker than what everyone else made them sound like, but maybe that's just because people grew up as kids struggling against the champions. When I was a kid, I couldn't even get past the Elite Four. Like, sure, the fights were epic, and they were meaningful, and they were so impactful to, like, the main story, and it was just like a whole epic thing. Legends Arceus, 3 attempts to beat Volo, 1 attempt to beat Giratina. Shining Pearl, 3 attempts to beat the Elite Four, 1 attempt to beat Cynthia. Same thing happened in Paldea. This one was literally 1 attempt. And I stuttered there, and I almost said 1 hit, because that's what I did. I one-shot all of Leon's Pokemon. I just want a real challenge. That's why I want to go through all the old games. And funny enough, while I was finishing up writing the script for this video, this wasn't in the script by the way, but I actually acquired Black 2 from a friend of mine. This was actually originally mine, and since he doesn't have a DS anymore, he gave it back to me, and I was like, whoa, it's crazy. Thanks, John. And this is Pokemon Sun, which I acquired a few weeks ago. I think I got it like maybe 1st, 2nd week of January. Yeah. I've been trying to beat Black 2 before I move to Sun. So after you're done with this video, you can find me on twitch.tv/Kurffy streaming Pokemon games. I'm going to be streaming all of these games in the coming weeks just to try to finish the Pokedexes for them. I already got the National Dex for all of them, except Shining Pearl, which is one thing I'm trying to do. And I'm also trying to get a Living Dex in every single one of these games right here. I think the one that will be the easiest will be Legends Arceus, but you know, who knows what I'll be streaming first. I don't know what I'm going to be streaming first. I just know I'll be streaming it that day. This is going to be a long journey, and it's going to be a long one to complete. So this right here is where I take my leave. So go to twitch.tv/Kurffy and you can support me and my Pokemon journey down in the description below. You can buy me a game and my ever-growing collection on Throne Gifts. It can help support my Pokemon journey, or just some other game you want me to look at or review or play on stream. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye, good night, good morning. Anyways, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next one.